This is from John, the 9th chapter. As Jesus walked along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Jesus answered, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world." When he had said this, he spat on the ground and made mud with the saliva and spread the mud on the man's eyes, saying to him, "Go, wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. Then he went and washed and came back able to see. The neighbors and those who had seen him before as a beggar began to ask, "Is this not the man who used to sit and beg?" Some were saying, "It is he." Others were saying, "No, but it is someone like him." He kept saying, "I am the man." But they kept asking him, "Then how were your eyes opened?" He answered, "The man called Jesus made mud, spread it on my eyes, and said to me, 'Go to Siloam and wash.' Then I went and washed and received my sight." They said to him, "Where is he?" He said, "I do not know." They brought to the Pharisees the man who had formerly been blind. Now it was the Sabbath day when Jesus made the mud and opened his eyes. Then the Pharisees also began to ask him how he had received his sight. He said to them, "He put mud on my eyes, then I washed, and now I see." Some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, for he does not observe the Sabbath." But others said, "How can a man who is a sinner perform such signs?" And they were divided. So they said again to the blind man, "What did you say about him? It was your eyes he opened." He said, "He is a prophet." The Jews did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they called the parents of the man who had received his sight and asked them, "Is this your son, who you say was born blind? How then does he now see?" His parents answered, "We know that this is our son and that he was born blind, but we do not know how it is that he sees, nor do we know who opened his eyes. Ask him, he is of age. He will speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews, for the Jews had already agreed that anyone who confessed Jesus to be the Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. Therefore his parents said, "He is of age, ask him." So for the second time they called the man who had been blind, and they said to him, "Give glory to God. We know that this man is a sinner." He answered, "I do not know whether he is a sinner. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see." They said to him, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" He answered them, "I have told you already, and you would not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become his disciples?" Then they reviled him, saying, "You are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he comes from." The man answered, "Here is an astonishing thing. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but he does listen to one who worships him and obeys his will. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a person born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing." They answered him, "You were born entirely in sins, and are you trying to teach us?" And they drove him out. Jesus heard that they had driven him out, and when he found him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" He answered, "And who is he, sir? Tell me so that I may believe in him." Jesus said to him, "You have seen him, and the one speaking with you is he." He said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshipped him. Jesus said, "I came into this world for judgment, so that those who do not see may see, and those who do see may become blind." Some of the Pharisees near him heard this and said to him, "Surely we are not blind, are we?" Jesus said to them, "If you were blind, you would not have sin. But now that you say we see, your sin remains." This is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Okay, there is a lot in this gospel lesson today. I mean, there is just a ton of stuff in there. It has got a rich bundle of goodies for preaching on. There are so many little threads that you can pull on. I mean, there's that question the disciples asked Jesus at the very beginning. Jesus, This guy's blind. Somebody must have sinned, so who is it? The guy himself or his parents? Of course, Jesus explains it doesn't work that way. Then you've got this argument that happens between the Pharisees and the man who is born blind, because they're going, Jesus couldn't have done this. You must be lying. You must have been able to see, because there's just no way this is going to actually work the way you're saying it is. And on top of that, there's this little problem that Jesus did it on the Sabbath, and we don't like that. That makes us very unhappy. Or there's the thing that I focused on this week. The little tidbit that just caught my attention, and it did so because at heart I'm really 12 years old. Jesus made mud with spit. Do you know how much spit you would have to use to get enough mud to put on a person's eyes? I mean, I'm curious about the logistics of it. Did Jesus just keep hawking loogies until he had enough? Or did he get all the disciples and say, hey, everybody, contribute? Has anyone else ever wondered about that, or is that just my brain? Just my brain, okay. I did get Maxon to help me with this week. I said, Maxon, go find some dirt and spit in it for a while. Then April and I had a conversation. So don't worry, I'm not going to preach you a sermon all on the spit of Jesus, okay? It's just part of the process. That's where my brain went for a while. Instead, I want to invite us to look at the big picture in this text today. Because there's a lot of things we can look at in a narrow sense, in just very specific terms. But when we do that, we miss the whole sweep of what Jesus is trying to communicate in this text today. Now, everybody in this story, except Jesus and the man born blind that gets his sight, everybody in this story has their field of view too narrow. They're only concerned about a few things. The disciples want to know who done it, who is the sinner, who is the person that's responsible for this situation, so we can look upon them with scorn. The Pharisees are concerned about somebody breaking the law and doing work on the Sabbath. And they're also concerned about people calling Jesus Messiah. Even the man's parents have their own narrow field of view concerns. They're worried about getting thrown out of their social club, the synagogue. Can you believe that? They stood their own son up, threw him to the wolves so that they could keep their friends? Kind of awkward, isn't it? So everybody in the text has their own narrow field of view. And Jesus is inviting not just the man born blind, but everybody to open their eyes, to expand their vision, and to see the bigger picture of what it is that God is up to in this world. Now, the text that we've been considering the last few Sundays, these really long gospel lessons, have you noticed they've been really, really long? That's on purpose. Used to be in the church centuries ago, we only did baptism one time a year, and it was at the Easter Vigil, a big celebratory service that would happen right before Easter Sunday. And so converts to Christianity, new believers, would spend weeks preparing for baptism. They would study catechisms and other things like that, learning about the beliefs and the practices and the rituals of Christianity. And these texts played a really important part in preparing people for baptism. They each teach their own lesson about how it is that we are baptized and are made sons and daughters of Jesus. Now, one of my favorite ways to talk about sin and what happens in baptism is with that fun Latin phrase y'all probably heard me say a few times, incurvatus inse. Can you say that back to me? Oh, come on, that was half-hearted. Incurvatus inse. There you go. Do you remember what that means? I know I've done this like 2 or 3 times in a sermon already. Navel gazing, that's right. Very gold star. The self curved in on itself. Navel gazing. All you see is me, myself, and I. It's a narrow field of vision. Your only concern in life is exactly what you see, yourself, your needs, what I want, all of that kind of stuff. And in baptism, Jesus stands us up straight, so we're no longer looking curved in on ourselves, but we're looking out at the world. And our concern can begin to become for those in need around us rather than ourselves. So that's how Jesus is doing this work of opening our eyes to see the needs of those around us. So a good illustration and a good little practice for you today. I assume you have windows in your house, right? Nobody lives in a cinder block bunker. I mean, it's okay if you do, but okay. So yeah, you got windows in your house. So go to one today when you get home, and I want you to do a little thing for me. Find the window and get as far away from it as you can in the room, like talking back against the wall, okay? And when you look out, what does it look like? It's a pretty narrow field of vision. You can only see a little bit. And then walk as close as you can get to the window. I'm talking like get your nose right up on it. You're going to have smudgy windows, all right? And then what can you see when you're that close to the window? You can see just about everything. That's what Jesus is doing, is opening our eyes to a wider field of vision so that we can see everything. And then what I want you to do is I want you, while you do that, to think about where you are on that spectrum. Are you all the way back against the wall, only seeing what you want to see and nothing else? Because we're all there at some point, right? We all have those times where I only want to see one thing. I only want to see what matters to me. I don't want to be bothered by anything else in the world. Or, so are you one of those that's back against the wall, or are you pressed up against the window, or are you somewhere in between? And guess what? You're going to change on an almost daily basis. Again, there are times that I'm trying to get through the wall. I want to keep my field of vision so narrow. There are other times where I'm a lot closer to that window, and that's going to be true for you as well. So do that exercise for me today when you get home. Find a window and move back and forth and wonder where you are on that spectrum. And as you do that, wonder also who or what is it that you want to see. But also wonder who or what is it that you don't want to see at all. Where are you on that spectrum? But know this, Jesus is always with us, always opening our eyes, expanding our field of vision to see Jesus more clearly, our neighbors, and the whole world. Amen.